Hello there, Callum Johns here with an Expanded Universe novel review. This video I'll be talking about Shadows of the Empire, and not just the adult novel by Steve Perry but also the junior novel by Christopher Golden. So there we are, with the covers are the same but one's a lot thinner, so that way. Now I'll start with the adult novel with my thoughts on that. I thought from the start actually I started pronouncing Shizor wrong. I actually pronounced it Xizor for whatever reason. And I know even in the start the forum chair speaker says his name, but it says there's an error with the name, so I thought that it might have been that. Well, the more you know. In the junior novel at the start, it actually specifies that it's pronounced Shizor, so fun times. Shizor knows Vader was Anakin from the start, just from the prologue bit, which I thought was interesting, as I didn't think it was common knowledge, and only those that knew Anakin before sort of figured it out, like Ferris Olin and that sort of thing. And it implies that there are more HRDs around, which if you don't know, they're human replica droids. So like Yuri, it explains about her being a HRD is the only assassin programmed one, but there are actually more around, which would be awesome to see if there are more around in other roles. And it jumps to Luke and really ties the story together well, in that it has Luke found Ben Kenobi's journal in his little home on Tatooine with more information about it and how to build a lightsaber and everything, which is really cool. And I thought another interesting point was Luke actually made the gem for the lightsaber, so the lightsaber crystal. Luke actually made his for Return of the Jedi rather than using a natural crystal, which most Jedi tend to prefer. Actually specifies that he actually can't get a natural one, so he's making it. It's interesting in the making it that if you don't infuse it with the dark side, it still ends up a more natural colour, which is the green of his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. Now, the specifics of creating the lightsaber are cool to read, and a bit later it's an awesome moment when Luke's actually finished building it and he activates it, and it really gave me good feels when I read that scene. And then it sort of cuts between Shizor doing things with Black Sun and the rebellion side. So it goes back to a meeting of Black Sun Vigos, and Dirge of the Hutt is a Black Sun Vigo, which I thought was interesting compared to when I last read about him in Rebel Dawn, when I think it was Dirge's father, well, parent, they change genders when they're going to breed in their huts, and then they change back after they've finished the maternal phase, I'll say. So it was interesting that Dirge of the Hutt is a Black Sun Vigo compared to him just sort of taking over the operation of his parent. And I found it really funny. They killed the Vigo with the most unimaginative name. Because the name of the Vigo is Green. So original. And then it's like, oh, that's the one that's dead. And all the others have interesting names, but this one's just Green. Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting how Vader was able to actually regenerate his lungs a bit when using the Force in his Bacta tank. Oh, sorry, not his Bacta tank, his meditation chamber. I also thought an interesting part was it mentions the starfighter not being able to take out the weapons on a Star Destroyer because of the strength of the hull plating and the shields. Fun times. It actually makes sense to me, which If you don't think of what I'm thinking of, I won't mention it. And Guri is a badass. She has an awesome just scene of... I love massacre scenes, really, and is awesome. Yeah. She's all... is a Phalanx, and Phalanx are a reptilian species, and they mirror that with thinking cold-minded, like not taking emotion into account and everything. And this is an interesting way of thinking compared to Vader's heat, which Vader is full of emotion and they sort of playing off each other. And it leads into Shizor losing that cool later on, and that's why he fails. Now, there actually appears to be Vader's castle on Imperial Center that it mentions. And I think that's cool, because he sort of has multiple castles, because I know he has the one on Vajun. And he must have the one here on Imperial Center as well. Which, if you don't know, Imperial Center is what Coruscant is called, under the reign of the Empire. And then at this point is where I started to think Shizor's attraction to Leia is really creepy. It just started going on with some really creepy stuff from his internal thoughts, and it put me off him a bit, to be honest. And I think Dash Rendar being a bodyguard again lines up with the work he did in Shadow Games, protecting Javel Chan. So he took a bounty hunter job. Well, he's sort of a mercenary, not a bounty hunter. And he took the job of protecting Javel Chan in Shadow Games. And if you haven't read that, go read it. It's a good read, I think. I think that one really good idea they added as well is the message droid. It's like, they can't use the holonet because it's owned by the Empire, so they have to send message droids to get messages secretly to places. The only downside is that they have to know where the people are going to be. Now, I think it's really cool. I'll talk about the Bothans for a little bit. I love how it ties in how many Bothans died to get this information, because, spoiler alert, they have a secret project that I just called was going to be the second Death Star. And it's the computer information with the second Death Star on, and that's how Sidious leaks the information to the rebels, because Shizor wants to lure them out to kill Luke Skywalker in the end, but then I end up going to the Bothans and finding the information for the second Death Star, basically. And many Bothans die to bring them this information. Oh, I love how it connects together with that. So, yeah. Shizor appears to make the Empire fall with his own machinations, really. I was thinking in that respect, because he's the one that suggested to let the plans leak. And the Emperor said, yeah, sure. And then, yeah. We know what happened in Return of the Jedi. Now, and also this is the second time they have Avaro, which is cool because they connect him to the original trilogy by being the cousin of Greedo. Cool little tidbit. But I found his lisp really annoying to read, to be honest. It's a bit like reading the Gungans, except for the Gungans I think make more sense than just a Rhodian having a lisp, and they changed it. But it does make a change in reading it. And it describes Dash Rendar's ship, the Outrider, as chrome. Now, in the video game, in the comics, as far as I've seen, it doesn't look chrome to me. So maybe there's a little bit of a disconnect there, or maybe it's meant to be that's what they call chrome. But chrome is what I think is the ships, basically the main Royal Starship, the Nubian J-type starship that they fly in the Phantom Menace would be an chrome ship. I like how it puts Luke in a tough position and he doubts himself, and as well as the dark side tempting him, leading into Return of the Jedi, because it's really him warring within himself and trying to work out the dark side and how to resist it and what to do with that. Back to the Bothans a little bit. It came up around while I was reading it. It's that the Alia, like Borsk failure, or yeah, you know, it's Y''Lya is an honorary on Bothan's names, which is interesting. I didn't know that before. And the Emperor uses a walking stick in this at one point, so interesting. Yeah, interesting fact as well is once a Jedi begins to grow in the Force, it mentions that their progress could not be stopped once they start growing in the Force, and so they can sense them. So that also makes sense for why Obi-Wan didn't train Luke from a really early age, is that if he started training him when he wasn't ready and too early, the Emperor would have felt his presence, or Darth Vader would have, and they would have found him. So fun. Love how the continuity comes together. Also, there's interesting and amazing how far Black Sun has actually gotten into ingratiating itself into the Empire with Imperial informants, spies, agents, everything inside the Empire as well. You'd think that they'd weed them out a bit. I thought it was ironic how Vader uses a sand analogy, because I don't like sand. And during part of the book, I don't know why it uses the French sans instead of just saying without. I've done a little bit of French, so I know san, S-A-N-S, san is French for without, so I don't know why they use that in an English book, but oh well. And the last little bit was interesting was that Chewie is afraid of serpents, which connects with a mention of Chewie being afraid of snakes in Honor Among Thieves, which is cool. Now, the junior novel I can talk about now, which is written by Christopher Golden. A couple of little notes I have here is that it actually says in the first page, if I can find it, Sizor, pronounced Shizor, which confirms that for me, which I didn't realise all through reading the adult novel, even though the form chair said it. I thought it was just one of his glitches. And the Emperor's eyes in this are actually red, not yellow like in the movies and how we know the dark side corrupts people. So I thought that was interesting. And overall for the junior novel, it's basically a light version of it. Missing out, I think, if you're going to read it, read the junior novel first, because it misses out a lot of the details that really make the story interesting from the adult novel. I read it afterwards because I was silly, but it's a light version. Some things don't quite make sense, some details are missed, like how Leia and Chewbacca pretend to be bounty hunters, and Chewbacca actually dyes his fur a bit in the adult novel, but it doesn't mention that. It just mentions he cut his hair in the junior novel, and a couple other things like that. As well with the adult novel, it's really cool how it connects so many things, like the many Bothans, and it has Luke building his lightsaber and Leia getting the bush bounty hunter outfit from Guri, which is an awesome origin for that. And the junior novel, well, I'd say it's the same story, so I'd say if you're gonna just pick one to read, just read the adult novel, it's way better. some of the language in the junior novel isn't quite as good in my opinion, and it just misses that much detail. Or if I can line it up with the bottom. Yeah, it misses that much detail in which that really enhances the story. Apart from, well, it makes sense in the end, I guess, with him turning emotional and that's his downfall, but Shizor as a character for me is cool, but then when he had the really creepy stuff with Leia, it really put me off of liking him as much as a villain. So, yeah. And it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger because he blows up the space station and Shizor could be alive or could be dead. Oops, spoiler alert. But, yeah. So, I think I bookmarked a little bit in this, which was interesting. Another little fact about lasers was saying that a hard green beam of light flashed between the two ships, a sighting ray of a big ship's cannon. You couldn't see the laser itself in vacuum, of course, but it followed the ionized marker you could see precisely. So what we see in the movies is actually we don't see the lasers. We see the ionized markers from the lasers, which I think is a really cool aspect of it. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the novels. I had a little bit from the game, so I may as well add them on here, because I'm stuck on the bloomin' Ghoul spaceport mission, because it keeps sliding me off places, and I finally got to the Boba Fett boss fight, and I managed to defeat him with 0 lives left, and bloody drops down, Slave 1 comes up and destroys me. Anyway, enough of complaining about how difficult that game is. Yeah, from the game, from the dialogue, I think it's actually in the part that I recorded, was that Shizor alters Vader's orders, it looks like, compared to running a separate bounty, which is how it appears in the book. Now, it might just be an interpretation of the dialogue here, because they want to make sure it looks like Vader, but it seems to maybe I'd question that a little bit. And yeah, and I just at the end of the Ornamental Junkyard mission, there was an IG-88 boss fight, which I thought was cool, and seeing him voice and everything was awesome. But I wonder, like, this is after Boba Fett and IG-88's dogfight from Tales of the Bounty Hunter, I thought. So it actually hasn't crashed on the junkyard, and IG-88 survived even a little bit. I just wonder which IG-88 it is, and how it ties together with the Tales of the Bounty Hunter's story for IG-88. Maybe IG-88's still alive somewhere. But yeah, I love how the game shows different aspects of the story to the novel. And I haven't read the comic yet, but when I read comics a bit more, I'll take notes while I'm reading the comics as well, but I don't tend to read comics much. I'm more a novel person, so that's why I'm doing novel reviews. Yeah. That's thoughts I had for Shadows of the Empire, and it sort of encapsulates sort of the entire multimedia project as I know it, based on the stuff I've read. So yeah, hope you liked it. Feel free to ask any questions. Don't forget to like the video. I don't know if people actually just look at it and don't like it, but it'd be nice to see some likes or even just comments. It'd be awesome to see some activity start up. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.